Well, Power Apps is an incredible low-code platform that will allow you to build custom apps quickly. And SharePoint acts as a robust data source that you can use. It's easy to get to, easy to configure, and I think you'll be able to quickly get up to speed on this. So I want to show you that very quickly. So what we're going to start doing today is we're going to build a project, a travel request app. And this app will allow users to submit travel requests, and managers can approve or reject them. It's a practical example of shows you how to automate processes in your organization, but it's not too difficult. You should be able to follow along. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our data source. That is a SharePoint list. And in order to do that, we're going to navigate to our SharePoint, and then we're going to go into our site. And for this particular piece, we're going to actually go into demo data, and we're going to create a list. So we're going to go to new and list, and we're going to create a blank list. Now you could create a list different ways. We're going to create it blank here so that we can get it the way we want it and easily use it in our app. So I'm going to call this travel requests, and I'm not going to show it in site navigation. I'm going to create this, and then we're going to show you how to add some columns to your list so that you can then have the data in there as the data source to use in your application. So we're going to add some columns here, and you can see right here we have the add column button. We could create a column here, and we choose what kind of column it is. And for this particular one, it's going to be destination, and it is going to be a single line of text, and that's going to be where the traveler is headed. And we're going to leave this as no default value. And as you can see, there's some also other options, but we're going to leave that blank, and we're going to save that. So you'll notice that now we have the destination here. And we're going to go ahead and put in the other columns, and we'll speed this up so that you won't have to sit here and listen to me type. Okay, we've gotten our SharePoint list done, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a few items to this. And again, I will speed this up so that you don't have to hear me typing out, and we'll be able to see the data in there, and then we will start to create the app. Okay, we're back, and we put in a couple of different things here. So you can see my vacation to Aruba, and we're going to be going on vacation. And then I've also put in for a conference, which, by the way, actually is a Power Platform conference that you may want to consider in October. So we have this demo data in here, these travel requests. And so we're going to talk about why this step is important. So it's really important to set up the SharePoint list correctly, because it's what drives your application. It's the backbone of your app, the place where all your data lives. And so by defining clear columns and data types and ensuring that the app will ensure that the app functions smoothly and that you can input information consistently. So now we're gonna open Power Apps to start building the app. So we're going to go, I could go to powerapps.microsoft.com, or you can go to your tenant and click on Power Apps if you have been given a license to do so by your admin. If you do not see Power Apps in your menu, then you'll want to talk to your IT department and see if you can get a Power Apps license assigned to you to do this. Most of the time, though, you will have that ability because Power Apps is available if you have a Microsoft 365 license. It is included as part of the license, so you should have this available. So we're going to click on Power Apps, and it's going to take us to the interface for this application. And what we're going to do is we're going to start a new Canvas app. Now there's different kinds of apps that you can create in here, and there's different ways of creating those apps, whether you start with data or you start with the page design, and there are different ways of doing so. So what we'll do is we'll create, and we're going to create a blank Canvas app, and we're going to do a blank Canvas app here. So you see how it says blank app based on Dataverse and Power Pages website. We will be getting into some of those in later videos, but for now, let's just create a blank Canvas app. And we're going to call this the Travel Request app. And we're going to leave it at tablet. Now you see that you could set it up for phone. We can also use the way that the application is actually set up to then allow it to automatically change to a form more suitable to a phone. But again, that will be in a later advanced video. So we're going to create this app, the Travel Request app, and we're going to connect to SharePoint in here. So we're going to skip creating a form or creating a gallery because we're going to do that in a minute. So we're going to skip that. We're going to go over here to data. And what this will do for you is it'll give you the option to add data. And that's what we just set up, is our SharePoint list. Do you remember we went to SharePoint and we have that in the demo data? I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go add data. And if I do, so I don't necessarily see everything. I have in here different data sources. So in order to do this, I need to type in SharePoint, if I can spell it correctly. And we will click on SharePoint, and then I will use my username, and it will search all of the different sites that I have available. So I know that it is in demo data, so I'm going to select demo data. And then as you can see, I have travel requests here, and I'm going to connect that as my data. So I now have a data source here, and we've connected to that particular site, and our data is now established, the connection is established, and we can go on to design the screen. And so we're going to we're going to insert here a edit form. As you can see the different types of things that we can add. We're going to add an edit form to this page, and we're going to drag it over here. We're going to make it a little bit larger so that the user can then get into it. And we're going to connect it to data. And so when we click on connect it to data, it's going to ask us what is our data source. And we're going to select travel requests. Right? So what this is doing is this essentially setting up the information in your travel request in this form. And it will allow people to input data specifically. Now you see that it's kind of not formatted the way we want it. So what we'll do is we will change some of the properties of this form. Number one, we're going to change the name of the form. We're going to call it input form. And we're going to change the columns. We're going to go to one column, and that will expand it. Now, if you had a lot more fields, you may want two columns. You may want to make it a larger, a full screen version of it. So depending on how many columns you have and what your purpose is, you can format this any way you need it. So we have now the various fields here, and as you can see, we have the form, but we don't have a button to actually submit it. So let's add that. Let's insert a button. Now we can absolutely insert a button, or we can insert an icon, and I'll show you both ways of doing this. So I have my button here, and as you can see, it's called button 1. We're going to call this button, or BTN, submit, right? And we're going to put the text as add. We're going to leave it as is. The only other thing I would like to do is to change the color here, and you can change the color. And everything about this button, we can change the various things here. We're going to go in, and I'm going to make it green, because that usually means go. And so we're going to make this button a little bit smaller as well. So instead of one, you can see the size is 160 by 40, but let's just drag it and let's make it a little bit smaller, right? So, well, it's not letting me. So let's do the width at 100, and let's make the height about 30. Right, so we'll make that a little bit smaller, and we'll put it over here in the corner. So when we have this button, we need to hook it up to tell it what we want it to do. So let's do this. Let's change that button. We'll click on the button, and you'll notice up here it says on select. And what that's telling it is, when I click on this button, what do I want it to do? And what we're going to do is we're going to say submit form. And you can just start typing in, and you will see that you have a number of different things that can be done with this. Now, when you submit the form, you click on Submit Form, it's going to ask you which form do you want to submit. And we just renamed that form, and I believe it's submit. I believe it's, what do we call it? We called it input form. So let's go back here, and we'll put it input form, and now we have the form hooked up. And we could stop there, but what we want to do is when we submit the form, we also want to reset the form so that it's ready for the next time. And you'll notice when we look at the form over here that the input form, the default mode is edit. So instead we want to change that to new, because what we want to do is we want to add, this is an add form, and we want to add to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this form to new. So when we reset, when we do an add here, and we'll put a semicolon here, and that's important. Every command has to be have the app. And I want to call it Demo Travel Day. My destination is Ontario, Canada. And let's see about a departure date, say March 10th. And then we'll go to March 12th. Okay, so it's going to be a short trip. And the purpose is to present demo. And the approval status is going to be pending. And my requested by is going to be myself. And I'm going to add this. So you'll notice when I clicked add, requests, we'll call it gal requests, and then we'll go in and we'll say, what is the data source? Well, we want it to be the same data source we're still working with, right? So we're going to select travel requests, and you'll see that now it has the requests here, and you'll notice that the layout has a picture on it. Now, unless we're prepared to put a picture of every place we're going and what we're doing, let's not have a picture, just the title and the subtitle should be enough. So we're going to go in here to the properties of this gallery, and we're going to change it to just title and subtitle, right? So now we have the ability to view the various pieces that we have, or the various requests that we put in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hook this up so that when we click on one, it will display the details over here, and we can then edit it. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to select this form. And so there's the idea of, if you look in the sources, in the different properties or different actions that can be done here, the properties of this form, one of the things that we have is item. So, and we also have the default mode. So the default mode is new. It's form mode.new. So when we select this item, we need to put the form into a new mode, and that would be edit. So in order to do that, we have to tell the form what do we want to see. And by doing that, we will allow it to pick the item. So we're going to go down to item, and that's a property of this form. And we're going to say, okay, gal requests is the name of the gallery. So we're going to go back to item, and we're going to say gal requests selected. So what that's telling this form is open this in this particular record, and that's what we want to use. Okay, so we're going to test this out, and we're going to go to conference, and you'll see that it has allowed us to change each one. However, this says add, which would be a little confusing to most people were they to be using this in edit mode. So maybe what we need to do is to change that just a little bit, and so that when we select an item here, we're going to change that value or that text to be edit, or to be submit, or to be save edit. Let's do save edit, shall we? So when we select this record, we want to change this from add to save. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in, again, the semicolon, and we're going to do a update context, and we're going to make that context, we're going to say button text, and that button text is going to be save. And then we'll put our brackets in. Right? And so now when we select this, oh, excuse me, that was the wrong place. We'll just cut that out, and we'll go back here, and we'll say here is where I wanted to put it. I wanted to put it in so that when we select the record, we're going to update this context as button text save. Okay, so we'll go into the button, and we will do the text value, and we will say, and you'll notice that the context variable, this what we've set up to be there, will now be whatever is in there. So let's try that out. Right, so let's go here. So now you'll see that the text is save. So we don't have a way to get back to the other piece, right? So we've got where we can now save, and let's try that. Let's actually try this. And so instead of Aruba, let's say that is Asheville, North Carolina. Okay, so we're going to save this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to look at this, and you'll see that it says that it's saved, but let's make sure that it actually did save in here, right? So we have now this Power App where we can now save this editing, and maybe we want to switch between editing and having a new record. So insert a new button, and that button we will put over here, and we will change that button text, and that button text button text will be new. And we will, again, we'll change that to the same width and height as this. So it would be 100 by 30, 100 by 30, 30, right? And we will put it over here. And then when we click on new, we will then change the form. So we'll know that we will not have the item selected. We will change the form to be a new form, and we'll change the context variable from save to add. So let's do this. So when we do new, and actually let's just put an edit button here as well. So we will actually do a Control C, and we'll get back here where we can actually copy this. And so we'll put this up here. And what we'll do is we will change this to edit. And that way we'll have, and we'll call this btn edit, and call this btn new. And so what we have now is we have an edit button and a new button. And so what we'll do is we'll put the form in, depending on which button is pushed, into the format into what we want, right? And that new button, what we're going to do on select is we're going to do new form, and we're going to do input form, just as we did before. And we're going to do on select, we're going to start a new form. Now, one thing that we want to do here is we want to maybe make this just a little bit shorter so that we can put a little something at the top and tell our user what we're doing. Right? So when we click new, we also want to, just as we did here, we want to update the context. We want to update the context of the button submit. So we're going to do semicolon, we put in this, and instead of button text being save, it's going to be submit. And that allows us to then, and now we have, so we're going to create the new form. We're going to update the context to button submit. Now we have the button text in here, right? So let's test this out. So now we have submit a new item. But one thing we don't do, right? We don't have, so when we create a new, will it come up? Will it just automatically come up? And so let's see if that's gonna happen. So we're gonna call this Christmas trip. It's going to be family's home, and the departure date is going to be December 22nd. Copy that so I don't have to go back in. And we're going to go back in here, and we're going to say this is going to be 31st. So we're going to take a nice long trip home, visit mom, and pending is going to be the approval status, and then I'm going to put my name in. And so I'm going to submit this, and if what we are doing is working correctly, it should show up in the gallery in the next, as soon as we submit it. So let's do that. And there you go. So it shows up. And if we click on this, so that now says save, so that we can then make changes, and we can then have our travel requests put in. Next up, we're going to put in another screen, which will give the supervisor the ability to approve or reject these trips. Stay tuned. We are going to set up the manager's approval screen now so that you'll be able to see, so that the manager will be able to see your requests and then change them. Change the approval status only on them. So what we want to do is we want to, I'm going to transition back to my screen over here. And we're going to create a new screen. So each of these pages are what we call screens. So we're going to call this CR input, and then we're going to go in and we're going to create a new screen. So we're going to go here, and under this you can see we have new screen. So we're going to do a sidebar screen so that we can then look at the requests and react to them and modify them. So I'm going to do that, and that makes it a little bit easier for us to, since we already have these set up. As you saw in the input, we really didn't set that up here, but we did set it up on screen 2. We're going to rename screen 2, and we're going to call that SCR approval. And you really want to think about renaming things as you go along, because you'll need to know the names of things. As you saw earlier, I forgot what the name was. And so you'd really need to know what the name of the screens are, and the more screens you get in, the more objects you get in here. Obviously, you need to know how to call them. So it really is, it's low code, but it's not no code, as you saw earlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert the sidebar container. And again, this shows you how we can set up a screen with the specific format or the layout that we want it to be. And we're going to put in a vertical gallery. And as we did before, we're going to select the data source that we want to get that gallery from. And we're going to change it again to title and subtitle instead of now you'll notice that it kind of popped out the width is 640. We don't really want it to be 640. We want it to be whatever the sidebar container is. We want it to be the same size as that because we don't want it to extend over. So what we'll do is we will, the width is going to be parent.width, right? And the reason I say parent is because this gallery is inside this sidebar container. So that's how we look when we look in the tree view, and this is where we'll see all the things we've created, right? So if we go in and we look at SCR input, we see the button new and button submit. So we see all of the things that we've created. We can see in this tree view. So it's very useful to be able to go into tree view, and that way you can get to the various parts that you want to look at. So we're going to call this gal approval or gal requests. How about gal pending requests? All right, so we're going to call it gal pending requests. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter the requests by the approval status equals pending. And what this will do, as approvals, as requests come in, they're going to be in the pending state. And we'll need to filter out the supervisor will not want to see requests that have already been approved, right, or rejected. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and we're going to set the height as flexible height, so that means that it will go longer as it needs to because of the number of requests. And we're going to go into items, and we're going to add to the items here. And you'll notice that items was automatically populated when I added the gallery, because it knows to add those items to it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put in the filter statement, and the first thing it wants to know is what are we filtering against? We're filtering against travel requests. So the next thing it wants to do is it wants to know what are you looking to filter for? And so what we want to filter for is approval status, double quotes on that. Yep. So we need to put double quotes because it is a string. So we put double quotes, approval status dot value equals pending. Okay, so we know all of these are in pending. So it's approval status dot value. So we know that we're filtering the travel requests as approval status dot value equals pending. And we see that we have all of these here. Now we can, again, if we go into this particular container and we say, okay, we're going to add the edit form again, and we're going to go against travel requests, and we're going to do just as we did before. We're going to do it in a single column, and the default mode is going to be view. And the reason that we want to do that is because we don't necessarily want the supervisor to edit unless he means to edit this this particular thing, and we will see in just a minute. So basically, we're going to do the same thing we did before. Is that we're going to put a semicolon, and we're going to say that we want it to be view form, and the name of the form is form 2. So I'm going to change that to FRM approval, and then we're going to grab that, and we're going to go back here, and we're going to do form approval, right? And we're going to do the view form, and then if we test this out, we'll see that it doesn't do anything. And the reason being is, if you remember, what we needed to do was we needed to set this form, right? What did we need to do to it? We needed to set the form approval. We need to set the item, right? So that was what I wanted to make sure you remembered that, because a lot of times people think, oh, it should just show up. It won't. You need to tell it what item you want. So we have this gal pending requests. Again, I'll copy that, and I'll go into the form, and I'll go to item, and I'll do gal pending requests selected. Okay, so as you can see now, I've selected. Let me go back and test it again. We'll go to conference, and it does exactly what we wanted it to do, right? Which is to create or to show the specifics of this request. And you'll notice that the approval status is in pending. So what we want to do from here to continue to configure this application is we want to, we're going to put the button here, and we're going to say the button is approve. And what we're going to do is we're going to have this form go into edit mode. And then when the form is in edit mode, we'll be able to have the supervisor change the approval status to approved. Now, we could change the approval status on the selected record than perhaps you want to do, right? So that'd be the next, in the next step, we would want to do a little bit more, make it a little bit more automated, where when you clicked approve, it just approved the particular record that you were on. Approve or reject here. But what we want to do is we want to set the form to edit mode. So we'll do edit form, and then we do the FRM approval, and so that will put this into edit mode. And then we will put a button in here to save. Right, so we'll insert a button here, and we will give it a little bit of gap there so that let's put some gap in there. Gap, put some 15 pixels of gap. And this button will now be, the text will be update. So we are going to approve this particular record, and then we're going to update that record when it's and when we do, we will submit form, and it'll be FRM approval. And then when we're done with that, we will reset the form, and we'll be back to where we were before, right? So let's try this and see where we're at. So we're going to approve, right? And you see that it changed. And now I'm going to change the approval status to approved. I'm going to update. And you'll notice that when I do that, it comes off of this list here. And the reason being is, as we saw, the approval status.value does not equal pending anymore. The approval status now should be approved. And you can see here, it is indeed set to approved. So we have now a way with the Power Apps to have a way for the supervisor to come in and approve the particular the travel requests, right? So there are a few things that we want to go back by. And so one of the things, again, we talked about this, right? We can then improve this. Instead of instead of doing an approval and then an update and having the supervisor go in and change this, we can then do a specific button. And this will show you a little bit more about how we can use this piece. So one thing we can do here is we can change the length or the way that this is formed so that we can give ourselves a little room. And we can actually add a button to each one of these. Now, if we add so I'm going to show you how to add a icon that will do the same thing as the approve button, only it will do it directly. So that'll be an upgrade for these, so that the supervisor can now just go in and click the check box, the check button, or the check icon, approve that, or the X button to reject it. Right? So let's do that. So we're going to insert. And you'll notice that we have icons down here, right? So we have a number of icons, and if you don't know what you want, if you want to find something quickly, you just search for it. So if I do check, you'll see we have the check, and I'm adding this check to this. And you'll notice that it shows up in each one of these. And it will, because this is the template that creates all the rest of these. You can't edit these, but you can edit the first one in the gallery. And that's because everything you do to that template gets done to all the rest of them. And then it applies to the specific record that you're dealing with. Okay, so we now have a checkbox. Let's add a new icon. We'll insert and we'll look for X. Let's see, stop. Let's see, what is that? Icons, discard perhaps, cancel. All right, so we're going to add an X, which will be the, reject, right? So we're going to, size is 30 by 35. We'll make this 30 by 35 as well. 35. And then we'll line this up, and you can see where the line basically tells you when it's lined up, right? So now we have two icons for each one of these gallery items. So what we want to do is when we click on this one, you'll notice that that icon has an on select as well. And the reason for that is that you can use icons just like you do these buttons. And so what we can do is do what's called a patch, and we're going to do a semicolon, and then we're going to do a patch. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to, it helps if you spell it correctly. And we're going to patch travel requests. So patching is basically telling the application that you want to do something to that application. You want to update the record, the particular SharePoint list item. You want to update the record with whatever you're passing into it. Okay, I'll show you that in a minute. So we're going to patch travel requests, and you can see up here at the top, it tells you what the options are, what the parameters are for this particular action. All right, so this particular action, patch, is the record that it's going to be working on is travel requests. And then we do comma, and we do this item, and we scroll down here to where is approval status. This item, approval status, right? So we want to update approval status, and then we want to update that to approved. And we'll put in, I have gotten the icon for the patch and for the reject, for the approval and the reject done, right? So what we do is we patch, we're doing the patch statement. And as you can see, we're patching, and then we're taking this travel request list, we're getting the specific item that we're working on, this item, and they're passing in for the approval status, the ID of 1 and the value of approved. Now you might ask me, how did I get the value of the ID of 1 from the choices list? So let's go and take a look at that. So if we go back into the list settings and we look at what we had in the approval status, we'll see that pending, approved, and rejected. Now this starts at 0, so it's 0 for pending, 1 for approved, and 2 for rejected. Now it doesn't show up that way, but that actually is the numbers that are associated with it. So if you take it from the top, 0, 1, 2, right? So you can, if you have a specific value that you want to set, and in this case, we know that we want to set approve and reject for these particular things, right? So we're going to go into the travel requests, and we're going to reject my vacation, and you'll see that that no longer is there, because we're only looking at things that are in here that are in the pending state. So if we go back here and we refresh, you'll see that my vacation was rejected. Not a very nice thing to do. Okay, so we've got a more usable interface for the approver, and we'll take out these two buttons, and so I will delete them. And so this will give us the ability again to dynamically just set that value. And again, I want to go back and look at the rejection, which essentially does exactly the same thing. It may be formatted a little bit different, but it does the same thing, right? So when you do a patch on it, you're saying, I want to update this list, travel request, and this item, the one that is selected in this gallery. So we want to update this item, and we want to update approval status, the column approval status. And what we want to update that approval status with is the ID of 2 and the value of rejected. So we are setting the specific record to the specific value. So this is a little bit more, again, this is for beginners, and this is a little bit more complex than perhaps you would be familiar with or understanding. But as you learn and as you begin to see things, one of the things I always recommend is that you will, if you don't understand something or you're trying to do something and it's not working, go search or look it up in Copilot and try to get a bit of code that you can follow along with, that you will then give you the answer of what you're trying to do. So we've got this, and one of the things I would like to do here is I would like to set this, instead of this being this long string is the name of my account on this particular tenant. And so what I'd like to do here is I'd like to instead of having my account in here, I'd like to have my display name, because I think that'd be a little bit nicer for the person to see, okay? So what we're going to do, now you'll notice that this combo box is called data card value 10, and that's not a very good name for this. So I'm going to say CBX for combo box, and I'm going to put requested name. And so I've changed that. And so what I want to do is I want to go in, because this is in a form, you'll notice that it is locked. I have to unlock it. If I try to change it, I can't change it because it's locked. So what I need to do is I need to go into advanced, and I need to unlock this card, this item in the card, to be able to change it. So in the display, when we want to look at the display indicator, right? So we will say, and so on the choices, instead of request that we're not going to do. So what we'll do, in order to change this field to the display name, rather than the display field being claims, which is what that is, we'll put display name, and we'll see if that doesn't do what we want it to do. There we go. So you can see that I've changed that to be more friendly, a friendlier value. And one of the things I want to do in the initial approval screen, right, so if we go back to that approval screen, back to the screen input. So again, if I want it to be, if I want the display fields, I can again go back and put display name, and then that will also change there. Now, one of the things that you want to do is to set this value when it is a new field. That should automatically set at pending. Right? So if it's new, we want to make sure that that is in pending. So if we go new, right, the approval status should always be set to pending. So what we want to do, we've done new, and we've updated context button text. So we can set this value. We're going to go again. We're going to do change the name, CBX approval status, and we are going to unlock the properties for this, and we're going to set the default item. The default selected item is going to be, so when you want to set the default selected items on this drop down to pending when they come in, when it starts a new one. So let's go back and let's here. Right, and so we'll do new, and you'll notice that now the approval status is no longer empty. It is in the pending state. Now, one of the things that I want to point out as we're making this new app, and I want to end up with that, is some navigation. Right, so we want to have something at the top so that we can then go in and see what we need to see. And also, I want to point out that we don't want the user to also see the approval screen unless they're a supervisor. So again, part of that might be that you have, or if they do come in as a supervisor, the supervisor can only see the employees that they have. That's a little bit more advanced for this app. But this gets you a long way towards what we're doing, right? So when you put in, again, if we say we're going to put in a new button, I'm going to put a new button in here. I'm actually going to copy this one, and we're going to put that over here, and we're going to call this approvals, right? And we're going to do DTN approvals. And what we're going to do is we're going to, well, number one, we're going to change the font size down a little bit so that we can see the approvals there. And what we're going to do is on submit, we're going to do something else we haven't done yet, and that is navigate between screens. So what we want to do is we want to go from one screen to the other, and there is a function that does that, and it's called navigate. So if we start typing it in, navigate, and you'll see what is the target. And if you just do this, it'll say what are the two different, it'll show you the screens. You can select the screen as the target, and we will then select the transition. And if you don't select a transition or you put none, there will be no transition. I happen to like fade. And then if we do one more, we can also have a context. So you remember we did the update context that changed the button text earlier. And so that button text then changed within the context of whatever was being done. The same thing can be done here, as we can say, going from one screen to another, we can pass information from one to the other, and that way we'll have information that is relevant. So what we want to do is we're not going to put in any context at this moment, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to navigate. We're going to test this out and go to approvals. So when we click approvals, we now are in the approvals screen. And when we're in, so the other part that we always want to do is we want to give a way to get back to the last screen we're in or to the home screen. So if you're thinking about how you as a user would use this application, you want to make sure that you are giving your users some way to get back to their home screen. So we're going to put in another button here, and we're going to say that this one, the text is back, and we're going to do this button back, and that's what we're going to call this button. And then the on select, the command is pretty easy to remember. It's just back, open and close bracket, or open and close parentheses. And that will, again, based on where you're at and how many screens you have, it will take you back to the last screen you're at. Now, let's just, as we're wrapping this up on navigation, let's add a new screen. Let's add a new screen to this, and we're going to call this header and footer. We're going to call this screen SCR Home. Okay. Now, I usually put the home screen up at the top, so I'm going to move that up to the very top, and I'm going to put a text label here, and that way we'll know what the screen is, and the text on that is going to be home, right? So, and we can style this however we want to style it, but essentially that home button gives you the ability to go back home. All right, so, and then if we insert a couple of buttons here, right, and we'll insert another button, and the first button will be input, button input, and then the second button will be approval, button approval. Okay, and we will put the on select here, and we'll go to navigate, and you will find that this is a function that you do on a fairly regular basis. And you'll notice that it has the button text as the context, because remember we had button text going from one to the other. So we're going to put in new. So that is an example of setting the context. I forgot to put in the closing parentheses there, right? So I'm going to go to input there, and this one, the button text is going to be approval. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll navigate, and we'll go to screen approval, close that, fade, and then now we have some we'll go to input, right? So we have that. We can go to approvals, go back. And the one thing I don't have here is a button to get to the home screen, which is probably something that you want on every screen, is a home icon or a home screen. So let's insert home, and we're going to put that here, and we're going to make it a little bit smaller. Put it over here, and then on select, we'll do again navigate and screen home. I need to close it, and we'll do a fade, right? And so now when we go back, we can get back to there. We go back to approvals. You can see we go input, we go back home, go input. So we have a back button here, but we don't have a back button here, but we have a home button. So, you know, drawing out some wireframes and kind of maybe taking the time to actually draw this out on a piece of paper and determine how you want each screen to look and what should be on that screen is a very good way to get started with this, so that you will understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So this has been a beginner's guide to Power Apps. It's been a very simplistic application. We haven't done a whole lot. We did, if you remember, we did some approvals. One thing we didn't do there was we didn't assume that there were multiple supervisors, right? So if we were going to extend this, we would then assume that there would be multiple supervisors and filter by supervisor as well as by employee. And in the next video, I will be going over some of those things as well. So I'm extending this application to be have a little bit better look and feel, and to have some more functionality where the supervisor is concerned, making sure that the approval button is only available to supervisors, that sort of thing. So we're gonna extend the SharePoint list. We're going to have some more lists there, and we're going to put in some supervisors and make sure that we understand who the supervisor is when we're putting in our request. So stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. And I hope that this has been helpful to you. Please like and share and subscribe and comment. Please comment and let me know how this works for you.